What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another My Week With It video. So this week I've been driving the 2025 Toyota Camry XSE all-wheel drive. So of course all Camrys are hybrid here for 2025, and I already did a full in-depth review on the 2025 Camry back in the spring actually, and so I will link that video at the end of this one if you want to hear all of my thoughts, all the details on the Camry, how this interior is, all that stuff. This video is just a follow-up of what it's like to live with now that I've lived this vehicle for a week, and I've put almost 200 miles on it actually in the course of this week here, and I've really enjoyed it. I think the thing that I enjoy the most is just the way they retune the electric motor so that it's so aggressive on tip-in. The second you tip into the gas, it immediately starts to just take off with a really strong feeling, and it's by far the fastest feeling 225 horsepower I've ever felt, I think. I mean, it is really punchy, and that is the one area I can just say right off the bat here, save you some time. If you're looking for the fastest feeling mid-size sedan in this segment, you know, I would say this handily beats the Accord, and also certainly beats the Sonata with its, you know, top hybrid limited trim having a lot less horsepower than this. This is the most horsepower on paper, and it feels like the most by a good margin, I would say. So punching, and especially here with the all-wheel drive, even though that doesn't actually give you extra horsepower on paper, strangely enough, it really does give you a new torque vectoring sensation where when I'm powering out of corners, it really feels like I can feel that back end assisting me and kind of bringing the back end around so that, you know, it just makes it feel a lot more dynamic. Even just in normal mode here, I'm not in sport mode or anything like that, just driving normally, this thing just feels so dynamic and so fun. The handling, I also have to say, now that I've spent a week with this, easily the best handling of the bunch as well. Accord these days has gotten a little softer, and I think for the average buyer, that's probably the right way to go. I'd say it still feels, you know, even a little bit softer here than this, but I mean, this still is a plentiful, comfortable ride, but yet it still just handles like it's on rails, and it really does feel that flat and that just aggressive with the handling here, and I just love driving this thing around corners. But speaking of corners, coming up some corners here that I always take, that I've taken both that Sonata and the Accord around just to compare here. I put it also in sport mode, and here we go. 235 wide tires, these 19-inch wheels too now on these XSEs. I mean, it's really a nice sporty package here, and it handles it so well, and again just feels so flat, and hands down is the sportiest of the bunch by, I'd say, a good margin here these days. The Sonata just didn't have a ton of grip. This again just powers out of corners, and you can actually hear it was wanting to spin either the rear or the front tires, I don't know which, but it actually lit up traction control exiting that corner there, because just how aggressive again it wants to get on the gas, and especially in sport mode here, it really tries to make it as dynamic as possible. Yeah, this thing, it really takes off. Got some more corners here going uphill this time, and this is where that all-wheel drive system, yeah, I mean, I keep hearing the tires screeching a little bit and struggling to put power down. Again, not like 225 is some wild amount, but again, the way it's just so aggressive with the tip-in that's triggering the traction control system shows you just how much they ramped it up. It's hilarious. It is really funny. You gotta test drive one of these things. If you live in an area with windy roads, it is actually a ton of fun. And again, I was not getting this excited going around corners in any of the competition. It's really cool. I love the way they decided to set this up here for 2025. The other things here, there were a few complaints, and I will get to those in a minute, so don't think it's all just praise here in this video. But the one other thing that I have to give some credit to, it's kind of a double-sided coin here, but the fuel economy. That's the other big thing here, of course, since these are all hybrids now, and people buying these are most likely interested in the fuel economy. I want to hit that here next. So fuel economy, these are rated at 44 mpg in the city and combined, and then 43 on the highway. And my driving was actually about 75% on the highway. Did a ton of highway miles here this week, and so as a result, might be on the lower end of that spectrum, because here I've been getting 41.5 mpg, which I still have to say is really good for something that's all-wheel drive, that's again set up to be so aggressive with the ramp up of the power and feels so punchy, to still be getting easily over 40 mpg and not trying to hypermile here, just doing my usual driving. I'm really impressed with that, honestly. Yes, it does fall a couple short here of what I should be getting of, roughly about 43, but still, in my opinion, a very good fuel economy result. And again, if you want to get even better fuel economy, go down to smaller wheels or go down to the front wheel drive version or both, and then you get even better fuel economy. But now for the complaints here in the Camry. The first is that these seats are kind of firm, and that combined with like the hard plastic still down by your knees and stuff, where the Accord has a little bit more padding and a little more plushness, as does the Sonata in many ways. This, I just say, is the least comfortable seat of the three. And I mean, maybe it's just that the Camry seat is engineered for long-term durability or something. But to me, I hopped in this and I'm like, oh man, like it's a little firm, a little firmer than I would like. Again, that's going to come down to personal preference, but just know it's a little bit of a firmer seat. Whether you like that or not is up to you. But one thing I can say is the cooling of the seats works really well. It's nice and strong with the cooling and does get you cold, pretty quickly. But after a few minutes, I've noticed that it seems to end up just being that if your seat back is, constantly getting pressure from the back of your back here, it's going to like give you some cold air around your upper back and the shoulders, and after a few minutes, that part gets super cold. And I noticed this also in the Land Cruiser, where it's the same deal. The way the Toyota's cooled seats work, after a few minutes here, it just seems like it ends up just getting your shoulders really cold, and then you just turn it off. But it does, again, cool down the rest of your back in those first few minutes. So it still does a good job. Just one of those cooled seats you can't leave on, in my opinion. You got to turn it off pretty quickly, and maybe that just shows how well it works. But I just have to say that, like the Hyundai Sonatas, for example, it's a more even cooling. The Honda cooling, I think, to me, was actually a little less effective than this. So, again, pros and cons there, but just one little thing to note there. Now, I don't know how early of production this one is here. I don't believe it's pre-production, but this one has a little squeak here down by the center armrest. And that seems unlike a Toyota to have a squeak, especially this one only having about 3,000 miles on it. So I'm not sure why that is the case, but just, make sure yours doesn't squeak or rattle whenever you, pick it up. But the other thing, though, that I don't love about the way they've designed this interior is the wireless charging pad. The rest of the interior is great. I actually really loved interacting with it. Everything worked flawlessly. Wireless CarPlay worked flawlessly this week. Everything was fantastic as far as the tech goes. But the wireless charging pad, it's like they put zero effort into the wireless charging pads at Toyota. It's just like this smooth pad. There's a little bit of a bracket here, so you have that going for you, but it just slides all over this little bracket because there's no rubberized surface. Most of the better wireless charging pads out there these days are rubberized, really grip your phone nicely and make sure it doesn't slide off of the contact patch that it needs to maintain in order to actually charge. And this one was a little iffy with the wireless charging, and that's, again, just across the Toyota lineup. All of them have the same wireless charging pad. One other complaint that I have, which is also shared with a lot of the other Toyotas in the lineup, is the way some of the tech is implemented. One thing that I've noticed is that because you have this driver monitoring sensor here on the top of the steering wheel in these top models of the Camry, it doesn't like if you have your hand like this, because then it can't see your face and it'll say driver inattention detected or whatever, because it thinks can't see your face, so who knows, maybe your eyes are closed and you're falling asleep. So just keep in mind, you can't drive with your hands up here like this. If you're blocking that sensor, it's going to bother you about it. I believe there's a way to turn that whole monitoring system off if you would like, but then that gets rid of the traffic jam assist feature, which allows you to do some low speed automation in traffic jams and stuff. Another thing, and this isn't unique to Toyota necessarily, but most of these systems where it does the forward collision intersection alert thing, they just, I don't know, to me it's just not a well thought out thing. It's a nice idea in theory that, if there's cars crossing in front of you and you happen to not be paying attention, it alerts you and can automatically stop if you're pulling out into traffic and you don't happen to see a car that's getting ready to T-bone you. It's nice in theory, but all of these cars, it means that it's all going to be dinging at you unnecessarily because it can't decipher turn signals. It can't figure out, you know, what's going on. It doesn't have the intelligence that you as a driver have. And so there's times where I'll be turning right on red, for example, but it will see a car in a left turning lane that's turning the opposite direction, and I'll be turning out and be like, oh no, you're gonna get T-boned. It's like, no, like it's not intelligent enough. And maybe that's a feature that'll be better once we have some smarter software to go along with these cameras and these sensors. But as of right now, it's just a too dim-witted system to actually be useful, because you're going to start ignoring the alerts all the time, and then it's going to just be less effective at its job. So that's another one that I would just turn off. Now, that's something that, again, I believe comes standard, at least here on these higher trims, but it's not something that I certainly think is worth having until that tech improves. And that's, again, not exclusive to Toyota. There's a few other companies as well that have, you know, systems that do various levels of freakouts about that, where, you know, they just can't, you know, properly discern what's happening like you can as the driver. So last little thing there about that tech. Now, the one final thing I will mention, and this is a really minor nitpick, but it doesn't seem like they're using both exhaust tips. And whenever you look at the back of the vehicle, it just looks a little odd, because one exhaust tip is like black, you know, like you would expect from a vehicle that's been driven a decent amount of miles. This one has over 3,000 miles on it. But then the other exhaust tip is like spotless on the inside there. So to me, that tells me they're only actually using one of those exhaust tips. The other one's just for vanity or very rarely used. And not a big deal, but just when I will walk up from behind on this vehicle here and see the way it just looks a little odd there to me. But just one little thing I wanted to highlight here now that I've, you know, been living with this vehicle a little longer. Those are the little things you pick up on over time. But you know, overall, I again really love the Camry. It's by far the most fun to drive in this segment, the best handling. I think also just really well priced too. That's the final little thing I'll mention here, is that this one as tested is $43,694, and that is a little higher than the competition. But the thing is, the competition doesn't offer all-wheel drive. This does, with the hybrid. Now, there's other all-wheel drive options like the Altima and the Legacy, at least for now, but neither of those, you know, have hybrid versions, and are going to get a whole lot worse fuel economy than this does. So, you know, with the main, you know, two competitors here that have the hybrid with the Accord and the Sonata, you know, I think that, yes, you're paying a little bit of a premium. It's about $1,500 extra for that all-wheel drive. This one also is ballooned in price a little bit by, like, those accent lights are an extra cost thing. The two-tone roof is an extra cost thing. All these kinds of things that you can't get in the competing vehicles. So that's what adds this up. But if you look at like a comparable front-wheel drive Camry XSE, you know, loaded up otherwise, you know, and compare that to the others out there, it does come in actually a couple $100 cheaper than in a comparably equipped Accord. Now, again, the Accord feels a little plusher inside, but again, this is faster, and you know, is just to me kind of the more fun pick of the bunch. Now, the other deal though, there is Sonata, and Sonata does come in about $1,000 or $1,500 cheaper, coming in right around $38,000. And you know, they also do varying degrees of fuel economy. Some do slightly better on the highway than the others. Some do a little bit better in the city than the others. So again, it comes down to exactly what you're looking for with all of those. But just worth noting, Sonata is a little bit cheaper, but you have a lot less power. That's like 190 some horsepower, and that hybrid versus this feels so much faster than that Sonata. I just was in the Sonata recently. This is a lot faster. So, you know, all these pros and cons, but to me, the Camry is, I think, my favorite pick from a driver standpoint. From a livability standpoint, I kind of like the plushness of the Accord and the Sonata a little bit better. So it's just going to come down to, again, what your personal preference is, what you would like out of, you know, a vehicle like this. But they all have their strengths, but I think Camry is definitely by far the most fun of the bunch now. And you know, we will see if they do some type of sportier version. I'd love to see Toyota be the first to offer, you know, a 300 horsepower or so powertrain while still retaining the hybridization, since that's something you lose if you go for like the Sonata N-Line, the K5 GT, and others like that. But yeah, overall, really have enjoyed my week here with the Camry XSE, and it seems like they're everyone else seems to really be enjoying these as well, because I've seen so many of these on the road this summer. They are selling like hotcakes, it seems. And so there's probably something to that. There's a good reason why, and I'm glad they're producing them in strong volume, so they're not going to be hard to get like some other Toyotas in the past a couple of years here. And so overall, yeah, definitely can recommend the new Camry here. It's fantastic, and I think they just made what was already a very good car even better here. No compromise with the hybrid, no compromise whatsoever. I don't miss the V6 at all. This is way punchier off the line than the V6 was, in my opinion. And yeah, it's definitely worth a test drive. I think you'll be pretty impressed. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2025 Camry. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Toyota for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. And yeah, be sure to check out the full driving review here on the Camry, as well as my reviews on those competing vehicles if you'd like to cross shop and compare them for yourself. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.